find your son.
Jack Turner had been scared before. Real scared. The kind of fear that creeps up your spine when you're chasing some meth-crazed guy through an abandoned trailer park at 2 a.m. The kind that makes you grip your gun tight and pray he doesn't pop out behind the next doorway. Yeah. Jack knew fear, but nothing came close to what he felt right now. Not when he was a rookie. Not when he faced down a guy twice his size with a knife. Not even when a bullet grazed his shoulder in that alley years ago. Because all of those moments, they were about him. This time, the fear was about Eli, his son, his whole damn world. And Eli had been missing, gone, vanished, 10 hours in the freezing hell of Redwood National Forest. 10 hours. Jack kept saying that out loud, even though it tore him apart each time. 10 hours. Jesus. Eli, where the hell are you, buddy? His voice cracked in the wind. Or maybe that was him choking up. He pushed through another clump of snow-caked branches, breath spilling out in ragged white bursts. The snowstorm had rolled in way too fast, like the sky had just said, "Screw you," and dumped half of winter onto the forest at once. Every step felt like dragging a mountain tied to his legs. His boots sank into snow up to his shins. His flashlight shook from the cold, or maybe from his hands. "Eli!" he shouted. "Eli! Answer me!" Silence. God. He hated that silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was dead. Like the forest swallowed every sound whole. His radio crackled, static again. Half the search and rescue gear was failing in the storm. A voice broke through. "CK, do you copy? Jack? The thermal drone's down. Conditions are too..." Static swallowed the rest. Jack cursed under his breath. That low, miserable whisper you make when you're too tired to scream. He leaned against a tree, lungs burning, snowflakes hitting his face like tiny needles. He wanted to stop, just for a second. But every time he slowed down, he saw Eli's face, laughing, running, talking about building a snow fort this weekend. Jack squeezed his eyes shut. No, he wasn't going there. Not now. Okay, think, he muttered, pacing in a tiny circle. Eli likes the creek. He always follows the creek. Stay near the water. Yeah, that's it. Panic scrambled his thoughts, but he kept pushing, fighting the storm like it was some living beast trying to shove him back. His flashlight swept across the ground, the trees, then nothing but foggy white nothingness. He still hoped, ridiculous as it was, that Eli might appear in that beam of light. "Please, please be alive," he whispered. "Kiddo, just be alive." His voice cracked wide open. "I'm sorry. I should have never let you go to the creek alone. I should have..." He stopped. Because saying it meant believing it. The snow fell harder. The wind howled louder. But Jack kept moving. Because what else was he gonna do? Go home? Sleep? Let someone else find his boy? Not a damn chance. He stumbled over a branch and dropped to his knees, the snow stabbing through his jeans like knives. He stayed there, hunched forward, gripping the snow. He remembered Eli that morning, that goofy grin, those dimples from his mom, skipping rocks and bragging he could skip them farther than Jack. And Jack. Jack had been half listening, stuck on some stupid insurance call. "I should have looked at you," he whispered. "I should have watched you closer." Something inside him snapped, sharp and brittle like a frozen branch. He slammed his fist into the snow. Once, then again. He wasn't done. Not even close. Jack forced himself to his feet, wiped his face and pushed on. He didn't care if the storm wanted to kill him. He didn't care if the forest tried to swallow him whole. He would not stop until Eli was in his arms again. "Hang on, buddy," he whispered into the dark. "Daddy's coming. You hear me? I'm coming." And he walked, alone, freezing, terrified, into a storm that felt like the universe trying to crush him. The night didn't scare him. The cold didn't scare him. The forest didn't scare him. Only one thing terrified him beyond reason: the thought that he might be too late. Jack didn't even hear her at first. He was too busy yelling Eli's name into the storm, too busy trying to breathe through panic that felt like it was crushing his ribs from the inside. But then, something moved in the corner of his vision. Just a tiny flicker. A shadow stumbling at the tree line. Jack jerked around so fast he almost lost his footing. His flashlight wobbled wildly before finally landing on... Wait. What the... A kid. A little kid. A girl, maybe 9 years old, soaked from head to toe, shivering so hard it looked like her bones were rattling. Snow clung to her hair, her jacket ripped, shoes muddy and half untied. She looked like she'd crawled out of the forest itself, and her hands, God, her hands were gripping the thick black fur of a German shepherd at her side. The dog stood stiff as a statue, chest rising and falling, ears pinned forward like a soldier on duty. Jack froze, absolutely stunned. The girl looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes far too old for a kid her age. Hey, sweetie," Jack said softly, raising both hands. "Are you okay? Where are your parents? What happened?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Just a trembling breath. Then, Are you Eli's dad?" Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Yeah, I am. Do you know where he is? Did you see him? Please tell me you saw him." The girl swallowed hard, wiped her nose with the back of a shaking hand. Then she said something that made Jack's whole body go still. "Ranger knows where he is." Jack blinked. "Ranger?" She nodded, gripping the dog like he was her lifeline. "Yeah, his name is Ranger, and he can find Eli. He already found the men who took him. He followed them. He knows where they went." Jack's mind sputtered like an engine in freezing weather. "Took him?" His voice cracked. Sweetheart, what do you mean? Someone took my boy? You saw it? She nodded too fast, too frantic, like fear might erase her courage if she slowed down. I... I'm sorry, she whispered. I tried to stop them, or scream, or do something. Ranger did too, but one of them shot at him and Jack dropped to his knees in front of her, snow splashing around him. Hey, look at me. He cupped her shoulders gently. Just breathe, okay? Nice and slow. You're safe now. You're helping me. I promise. She sucked in a shaky breath, her lip trembling from cold and fear. Ranger stepped closer, sniffing Jack, then staring into the dark as if impatient. Jack noticed the dog's back leg, fur matted with dried blood. Jesus, he whispered. You're hurt, buddy. The dog didn't flinch, just stared into the trees like something was calling him. The girl tugged on Jack's sleeve. Sir, he knows where Eli is. Ranger won't stop. He never stopped. He tracked them all day, even after he got shot. He keeps pulling me the same direction, but I couldn't go anymore. I got lost, and then She hiccuped, wiping tears. I thought you were never going to hear me. And that shattered Jack. He pulled her into his arms, hugging her tight, feeling how cold she was, how badly she trembled. Thank you, Jack whispered. Thank you for not giving up. She nodded into his chest, then pulled back, sniffing hard. I'm Lila, she said softly. Lila Dawson. And this is Ranger. And we want to help you. For the first time in 10 hours, Jack felt something return to his lungs. Not hope, not yet, but something close. A flicker, a spark. He crouched down eye to eye with Ranger. Hey, big guy, he murmured. You know where my boy is, don't you? Ranger stared back, eyes sharp, steady, burning. Then the dog stepped forward, nudged Jack's hand with his nose, and turned toward the forest. Like he was saying, follow me. The moment hit Jack so hard he nearly swayed. For the first time since Eli disappeared, he wasn't alone in this nightmare. Lila wiped her face and whispered, I told you. Ranger knows. He's been trying to get someone to follow him for hours. He won't stop till he finds Eli. Jack pressed a shaking hand to his mouth. Oh, God. Okay then. Lead the way, Ranger. And as the dog stepped into the dark, snowy forest, Jack felt something he hadn't felt all night. A tiny, fragile, ridiculous little thing. Hope. Jack and Lila followed Ranger deeper into the forest, snow crunching beneath their boots. The storm finally easing up like the sky was catching its breath. For the first time in hours, Jack could hear more than the wind. He could hear Lila's small, shaky breaths behind him. After a minute, he slowed enough to walk beside her. The kid looked exhausted. Not played too long outside, tired, but the kind of tired that happens when fear has been eating at you for too long. Lila, he said softly, careful not to spook her. I need to know what happened. Everything. Even the parts that scare you. Can you do that for me? She didn't answer at first, just sniffed, wiped her nose on her sleeve, and nodded stiffly. I'll try, she whispered. It's just a lot. It's okay, Jack murmured. Take your time. They kept walking. Ranger stayed a few steps ahead, tail stiff, muscles tight, moving like he was holding himself together with sheer stubborn will. Every time the dog limped, Jack felt guilt twist deeper inside him. God knows what Ranger had been through before finding them. Finally, Lila looked up. Eli wasn't supposed to be there, she said suddenly. At the creek, I mean. I go there all the time after school. He just showed up. Jack's heart clenched, but he stayed silent, letting her talk. He asked if he could skip rocks with me, she continued. And I said yeah, because he was really nice. Not like most kids. He talks to you like he actually cares what you're saying. Jack swallowed hard. Yeah, that sounded like Eli. Lila took a shaky breath. We were laughing, and Ranger was sniffing around, and it was just normal. Like a normal day, and then she pressed a hand to her chest, like she was trying to keep her heart from falling out. Then I saw them. Jack didn't interrupt, didn't blink, just listened. There were 3 of them, she whispered. Up on the ridge. I didn't know their names then, but I heard them later. Mason, Griggs, Hawthorne. Jack's jaw tightened. He knew those names. Too damn well. They weren't just watching, she said. They were staring, like we were targets or something. She hugged herself tighter. I told Eli I had a weird feeling, like something bad was about to happen. And he said, It's okay. I'm not going to let anything hurt you. Jack had to stop walking, had to brace a hand against a tree, because imagining his boy, his tiny 11-year-old kid, trying to shield someone else, made something twist painfully inside him. Then I slipped, Lila whispered. The rock was wet. I fell, and Ranger barked, and everything happened so fast. Eli grabbed my arm so I wouldn't fall in. And then, she took a long, trembling breath. Then the men walked down the hill. Jack felt the air around him grow colder. They didn't say anything at first, she continued. Just kept walking toward us. Ranger was growling, that deep growl dogs make when they mean it. And Eli stepped in front of me, arms out, trying to make himself bigger. Her voice broke. He told them to back off. Jack felt his chest cave. They didn't listen, Lila whispered. Mason grabbed Eli's arm. Eli tried to pull away. He yelled at them to leave us alone. Ranger jumped. He tried to bite them, but Hawthorne had a gun. She squeezed her eyes shut. He fired. He missed, but the bullet scraped Ranger's leg. Ranger fell, and I screamed, and Eli screamed, and then Griggs shoved me down. Jack's fists curled tight. They grabbed Eli, she whispered, dragged him through the trees like he was nothing, and he kept shouting my name. I tried to run after them. I swear I did. But Hawthorne pointed the gun, and Ranger barked, and I froze. I'm sorry. Her voice shattered. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help him. Jack knelt and put both hands on her shoulders. Lila, look at me. She lifted her tear-filled eyes. You did more than most adults could have done. You survived. You stayed with Ranger. You came to find me. That's brave, sweetheart. That's real brave. Ranger let out a low sound. Not a bark. More like agreement. The forest fell quiet. The storm settling into a cold, eerie calm. Jack stood again, staring into the endless dark. So they took him, he murmured, and Ranger followed them. Lila nodded. And now he's taking us the same way they went. Jack clenched his jaw. Then that's where we're going. Ranger limped forward, like a wounded soldier who refused to surrender. And a single question hung heavy in Jack's mind. Would he be ready to hear what happens next? Or would the truth destroy him? Yeah. Tell me in the comments. I'm honestly curious how you'd react. Ranger kept moving ahead of them. Slow, but steady. Like every step hurt, but quitting just wasn't in his vocabulary. Snow clung to his fur, sticking to the dried blood on his leg. But he didn't pause. Not for a second. It was almost unsettling. The way he pushed forward, like he was powered by something other than muscle or bone. More like instinct, or purpose, or maybe just pure, stubborn loyalty. Jack watched him for a moment, then looked down at Lila walking beside him. She kept rubbing her arms, not from the cold, but from nerves. The kid was trying so hard not to fall apart. You okay? Jack asked softly. She nodded, but it wasn't the confident kind. More like a yeah, but not really kind of nod. I'm just scared Ranger's gonna fall, she whispered. He's been going like this for hours. And he didn't rest. Not once. Jack's eyes followed the dog again. Yeah, he murmured. I can see that. They moved through the trees, the storm easing, but the cold still biting. Every now and then, Ranger would stop for just a second, lift his nose, sniff the air, check the ground, then keep walking. But that limp, it was sharper now, more noticeable, like each step took a year off his life. Jack sped up until he was only a few feet behind him. Hey, buddy, he called gently. You gotta take it easy, all right? You don't have to do this alone. Ranger didn't look back, just kept moving, ears locked forward like he was tracking ghosts only he could see. Lila let out a tiny, shaky laugh. He does that, she said. He kinda ignores you when he's working, like he's in his own head. Yeah? Was he a K9 before? Jack asked. Uh-huh, she said. My uncle trained police dogs. Ranger failed his final test because he got too attached to people. He protects too much. It's Jack felt something warm twist in his chest. And Eli was his person. Huh? Lila nodded, and this time it was certain. Yeah. They only hung out a few times, but Ranger, I don't know. He just picked him. And after today, Ranger won't stop till he gets Eli back. I promise. He's like a soldier now. Jack swallowed hard. A soldier. Yeah, that's exactly what Ranger looked like. They walked in silence for a while, snow crunching beneath them, branches rattling overhead. Ranger's breathing growing heavier, rougher, but steady. Every few minutes, the dog stopped and pressed his nose into the ground, tracing invisible lines only he could read. Jack couldn't help himself. Lila. How did he even track them this long, with that injury? Lila shrugged, wiping her nose. He just did. I tried to make him stop. I kept saying, Ranger, please, you're bleeding, sit down. But he wouldn't. He kept tugging my sleeve. Hard. Like he was saying, move. Her voice trembled. He even collapsed once. Just fell over. And I thought that was it. I thought he was dying. But then he got up again 2 minutes later and pulled me down the trail. Jack felt his throat tighten. This dog wasn't surviving on strength. This was something else. Something dangerously close to devotion. The forest opened slightly, giving them a clearer view. Ranger stopped again, sniffed the air, then looked back at them. The first time he'd looked back since they started walking. His eyes were glassy, tired, hurting, but still fierce. Still lit with something determined. Jack crouched in front of him. You brought Lila to me, he said quietly. You knew we couldn't find Eli without each other, didn't you? Ranger blinked slowly, then nudged Jack's chest with his nose. Lila stepped forward. He turned around earlier, she whispered. When we got too far, he panicked. He couldn't smell Eli anymore, so he ran backward until he found me. And he pushed me literally pushed me. She lowered her eyes. I thought he was mad, but I think he realized he couldn't do it alone. He needed help, someone who cared as much as he did. So he brought me to you. Jack's eyes stung. The sky above cracked open slightly, moonlight spilling through the trees. It hit Ranger's fur, making him look almost heroic, like some old war dog out of a story. Okay, Jack breathed. Lead the way, soldier. Ranger turned without hesitation, walking again, slower but surer. And in that moment, Jack realized something. Eli wasn't surviving because he was lucky. He was surviving because someone refused to let the world take him. The storm wasn't done. Not even close. Yeah. It had slowed down for a few minutes, like the sky needed a breather. But now the snow was back. Harder, sharper, stinging Jack's face like sand. The wind kept pushing at them, trying to shove them off the narrow trail, twisting through the trees. But Ranger didn't care, didn't even seem to notice. He moved like a ghost, limping, bleeding, stumbling every now and then, but still pushing forward with that stubborn fire burning hotter than the cold around them. Jack tightened Eli's scarf around his neck. It still smelled like his kid, pine needles and cheap laundry detergent, and that alone kept him upright. "Lila," he called over his shoulder. "You doing okay back there?" "Yeah," she croaked. "I mean, kinda. I'm trying." "Good," Jack said, even though he wasn't sure he believed himself. "Just stick close." She nodded, hugging herself, following step after trembling step. Ranger suddenly stopped, then dipped his nose into the snow, sniffing so hard his whole rib cage heaved. Jack froze, every muscle tightening. "What is it?" he whispered. Ranger sniffed again, then pawed gently at the snow. Not digging, more like tapping something. Jack stepped closer. A smear of red, thin, faint, barely visible unless you knew where to look. "Blood," Jack breathed. Lila stepped beside him, voice tiny. "That's from Ranger, right?" Jack shook his head slowly. "No, it's too dark, too dry. Ranger's blood was fresher. This is older." He looked up at the dog. "You're following him, aren't you?" Ranger blinked once. Slow, steady. Jack felt his spine lock tight. Eli had bled here. His boy. His 11-year-old kid. Something had hurt him. Fear hit Jack so hard he almost folded in half. But Ranger moved again, lifting his head, inhaling deeply, turning sharply to the right. No hesitation. No doubt. It was like the forest itself had whispered the direction. "Okay," Jack muttered. "Okay. Okay. Lead on." They kept walking. Or, more like fighting their way through the woods. Branches whipped their faces. Ice crunched louder than footsteps. Every inch of the forest looked the same. Dark, cold, endless. Ranger made a sound, half whine, half growl, then pushed forward again, faster this time, even though every step looked like it should have made him collapse. "Slow down, boy," Jack yelled. But Ranger didn't slow. Couldn't slow. Not with whatever fire was driving him forward. "Jack," Lila said softly, barely audible under the wind. "He thinks Eli's still alive." Jack turned, eyes burning. "What do you mean?" She wiped tears with her sleeve. "When he tracked them earlier, he stopped once. Just once. Put his nose in the snow and—" She swallowed hard. "I thought he'd give up. I really did. But then he made this sound, like he smelled something that told him he's okay. And he kept going." Jack stared at Ranger's silhouette ahead. Limping, bleeding, shaking, but never stopping. And yeah, there was something in the dog's eyes whenever he glanced back. Something fierce, something that said, "Don't give up, he's not gone." The forest tightened around them, trees closing in like ribs of some giant beast. Jack pushed branches out of Lila's way. "Careful," he murmured. "I'm fine," she said, even though her teeth were chattering. "Just keep going." 10 minutes passed, then 20. Time felt meaningless. The only thing that mattered was that wounded silhouette of a German shepherd pulling them deeper into the dark. And then, suddenly, Ranger stopped. Not the curious, "I smell something" stop. Not the tired, "I need a break" stop. This was different. Sharp, alert, electric. Jack felt it too. A shift in the air. A smell. A presence. "What is it?" he whispered, stepping beside the dog. Ranger lowered his head, growled low, and pointed his nose forward. Lila squeezed Jack's sleeve. "What does that mean?" Jack's voice dropped to a quiet, trembling breath. "It means, whatever happened to Eli, we're getting close." Ranger took one step forward, then another, and Jack followed, heart pounding in his throat. Because now, for the first time all night, the fear wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the truth waiting ahead. Ranger stopped so suddenly Jack almost tripped over him. The dog's body stiffened, not with fear, but with recognition, like he'd been here before. And something about the way Ranger's ears flattened made the back of Jack's neck prickle. Lila grabbed Jack's sleeve. "Why'd he stop?" she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He stepped beside the dog and looked through the trees, squinting, because the snow and darkness made everything look like shadows of shadows. But then, he saw it. At first it was just a strange shape in the dark, too big to be a rock, too angular to be a fallen tree. Then the wind pushed the snow aside just enough for the outline to show. A building. No. What was left of one. "Aw, hell," Jack breathed. The Riverside lumber mill. He hadn't seen it in years. Hell, most people forgot it even existed. The place had burned in '09. Half the roof gone. The inside gutted. Condemned. But even ruined buildings had memories. And Jack remembered exactly what kind of men used this place back then. Lila followed his stare. "That's a building?" she whispered. "Yeah," Jack muttered. "Or it used to be." The closer they got, the worse it looked. Wood sagging like wet cardboard. Steel beams twisted like broken bones. Black burn scars crawling up the walls. But the worst part, the part that made Jack's stomach flip, was the flicker. A faint gold light pulsing behind the cracked, boarded window. Not steady, more like someone holding a lantern or a cheap portable lamp. "Jack," Lila whispered. "Someone's inside." He swallowed. "Yeah, I see it." Ranger let out a low sound, something between a whine and a growl. Not fear, rage, wrapped in pain. And that alone made Jack's heart hammer, because Ranger had followed the kidnapper's trail all day. If Ranger didn't like this place, then this was exactly where Eli was. Jack crouched beside the dog, trying to steady his breathing. "You sure this is it, boy?" Ranger didn't look at him, just stared at the building like it was the enemy. Then he took one slow step forward. That was all Jack needed. "Okay," he whispered. "We're going in, but slow, quiet." He turned to Lila. "Stay behind me. No exceptions. You see anything, you freeze, got it?" She nodded quickly, fear filling her eyes. But honestly, nobody was ready for this. Not even Jack. And he'd seen some seriously messed up things in his life. As they approached, the cold changed. Not colder, just different. Like the air itself was heavier around this place. Dead air. Wrong air. The mill loomed over them. All sharp angles and rotted wood. Every step closer felt like walking into the mouth of something that hadn't eaten in a long, long time. A gust of wind pushed through the broken boards, making them creak like old bones. Lila flinched. "It sounds alive," she whispered. Jack didn't disagree. They circled toward a side wall where the boards hung loose. The snow thinned under the overhang, revealing muddy footprints. Fresh ones, going in and out. Jack's stomach twisted. "Mason and his guys," he muttered. "They've been using this place. They picked it for a reason." Lila looked up at him. "What reason?" Jack stared at the mill, remembering the bust years ago, the intel, the files, the rumors. "Because no one comes here," he said quietly. "People say this place is cursed. Bad stuff happened here way before tonight. It's the perfect hideout, because the town avoids it like the plague." He pointed his flashlight toward a half-collapsed doorway. More footprints. Boots. 3 sets. And then smaller ones. Dragging. Not running. Eli. Jack felt his lungs collapse in a single sharp breath. He had to stop, hand braced on the wall, fighting the urge to break apart. Lila touched his arm gently. "Jack, you okay?" He didn't look at her. I can't think about him being scared right now," he murmured. "If I think about that, I won't be able to walk in there." Ranger stepped forward and pressed his head into Jack's leg. A quiet, comforting gesture from a dog who refused to give up. Jack exhaled hard. "All right," he whispered. "Let's bring him home." Ranger nudged the door with his nose. It creaked open like a scream caught in slow motion. Inside, the faint yellow light flickered again, casting long shadows across ruined machinery. The smell hit next. Oil, wet ash, rotting wood. And something else. Fear. Jack swallowed hard, forcing courage into his bones. He gently pushed Lila behind him, raised his flashlight, and whispered, "Stay close." Because now there was no turning back. Not for Jack, not for Lila, not for the dog who refused to die until he saved that boy. Inside the mill, everything felt wrong, cold, but not the kind the snow brought. This was a different cold, a hollow one. Like the walls themselves remembered every terrible thing that ever happened here. Jack's boots crushed old sawdust into powder. Lila stayed glued to his jacket, barely breathing. Ranger limped ahead, slower now, painfully slow, but still pushing forward like a dying engine refusing to shut off. A soft buzzing sound hummed deeper inside. Maybe the lantern, maybe something else. This place swallowed sound and spit it back in strange echoes. Then he heard it. Not a buzz, not the wind. Voices. Jack froze mid-step, the hair on his neck rising. Lila grabbed his hand, fingers ice cold. "Is that them?" she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He just nodded. Once slow. He crouched behind a half-collapsed workbench, pulled Lila and Ranger with him, and tilted his head to listen. "Shouldn't have brought the kid here," a deep voice growled. "Griggs." Another voice, lighter, shaky, replied, "What were we supposed to do, man? Mason said we needed leverage." Leverage. Jack clenched his jaw so tight it hurt. Then another voice, slow, cold, sharp as a blade, cut through the dark. "We didn't take the boy for leverage." Mason. Jack would know that voice anywhere. He'd heard it 3 years ago when he cuffed the bastard behind a busted motel. Heard it again in court when Mason swore he'd get even. And now here he was. Mason continued, voice dripping with venom. "We took him so his old man knows what it feels like." Griggs scoffed. "Feels like what? Having his kid scream for help? Yeah, well, he deserves it. That bust ruined us." Hawthorne chimed in, pacing by the sound of it. "You lost 2 guys that night, Mason. They weren't even your family, and you lost your mind. Imagine how he feels right now. Bet he's out there crying in the snow somewhere." Mason laughed. Actually laughed. Not loud. The quiet, twisted kind. "Good," he said. "I want him broken. Crawling. He took everything from me 3 years ago. 2 of my best men." Jack's heart pounded so hard Lila could probably hear it. Jack whispered under his breath, voice shaking with cold fury. "Your men killed a kid back then. That's why I shut your operation down." The memory cut through him. A 14-year-old caught in crossfire. A case he never forgot. Mason kept going. "And now? Turner's gonna feel the same hole in his chest, the same emptiness. He'll know exactly what it's like to have someone ripped away." Lila gasped quietly, covering her mouth. Jack pulled her close, finger to his lips. Ranger leaned against Jack's leg, trembling. Not from fear, but rage. "What if Turner actually gets here?" Griggs asked. "You know he's stubborn as hell." Mason laughed again. "Oh, he'll come. He's predictable like that. Thinks he's some kind of hero." Hawthorne's voice turned mocking. Maybe we should leave him a message. Break the kid's arm or something. Let his old man hear the scream. Jack felt his whole body go still. Then something deeper, deeper than anger, started burning in him. Lila tugged on his jacket. Jack, no, don't go yet. You can't. We don't even know where Eli is. You can't run in. He forced himself to remain still, even though everything inside him screamed to move. Ranger pressed his forehead into Jack's thigh, grounding him. A silent message. Not yet. But soon. The men kept talking, words dripping with cruelty. You really hate Turner that much? Hawthorne asked. Mason chuckled quietly. Hate? No, hate's too small. Turner humiliated me. He took my crew, my life, so I'm taking his. Jack shut his eyes, teeth grinding. Lila whispered, Why would they hurt Eli for something you did? Because people like Mason don't care about fair, Jack murmured. They care about pain. Jack peeked over the workbench. The lantern swung slightly, casting jagged shadows across broken machinery. 3 silhouettes, pacing, talking. But Eli wasn't in sight. Probably tied up somewhere behind the stacks of lumber or deeper inside. So what's the plan? Griggs asked. When Turner shows up, kill him, drag it out, make the kid watch? Mason replied instantly, all of it. Something snapped inside Jack, quietly, like a rope pulled too tight finally breaking. He whispered to Lila, When I say move, you stay behind me, no matter what happens. She nodded, terrified. Ranger shifted his weight. Ready. Jack inhaled. Deep. Steady. Because now he wasn't walking into danger. He was walking into vengeance. Mason wanted him broken? Fine. Jack Turner had been broken before, and he'd learned how to fight twice as hard when he was. Jack didn't wait long, didn't breathe, didn't think. 1 second he was crouched behind that busted workbench, muscles coiled so tight they shook, and the next, he was moving. Like something inside him snapped open and said, Enough. He surged from cover and slammed his shoulder into the nearest stack of rotting lumber, knocking it over with a crack so loud it echoed across the whole mill. The 3 men snapped around instantly. Griggs, startled. Hawthorne, reaching for his gun. Mason, smiling. That twisted, sick smile, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Jack didn't give any of them time to react. He charged. Turner! Mason roared, stepping back. But Griggs wasn't fast enough. Jack tackled him first, full force, driving him into a metal tool bench. The crash sent rusted bolts flying across the floor. Lila screamed. Ranger lunged. The dog shot past Jack like a streak of black lightning. No hesitation, no fear, just pure instinct, pure loyalty, pure heart. Griggs was scrambling, reaching for the knife at his belt. Ranger hit him before he could touch it. The impact was brutal, like watching a car crash. A snarl ripped through the air. Griggs screamed as Ranger clamped down on his arm. "Get him off!" Hawthorne spun toward them, gun raised. Jack saw it. In 2 seconds that felt like 10, the muzzle lifting, the finger tightening. Ranger still latched on. "Ranger! No!" The gunshot cracked through the mill like a thunderclap. The sound hit harder than the wind, the cold, any punch Jack had ever taken. And Ranger made a sound Jack would never forget. Not a bark, not a growl, a choked yelp, short, sharp, full of pain. His body twisted from the impact. Blood sprayed across the concrete. He rolled once, hit the ground, and lay still. "No!" Lila's scream tore through the air. "Ranger!" Jack felt time freeze. But Hawthorne wasn't done. He swung the gun toward Lila, or rather, toward where she hid behind stacked crates, and behind her, Eli, tied up, mouth taped, eyes wide with terror. Jack's heart nearly burst. Everything inside him ignited. He roared, actually roared, and dove toward Hawthorne. The gun fired again, missed Jack by inches as he slammed into him. Both men crashed to the ground, fists flying, rolling across shattered glass and rusted metal. Hawthorne elbowed Jack's cheek. Jack tasted blood, didn't care. Hawthorne reached for the gun. Jack grabbed his wrist and slammed it into the floor. Once, twice, the gun skidded away. Mason charged then, swinging a piece of rebar like a spear. "Jack, look out!" Lila screamed. Jack spun, barely dodging the strike. Mason swung again, faster, the metal rod slicing the air past Jack's ear. "You ruined my life," Mason spat. "You did that yourself," Jack shouted back. They collided, grappling, slamming into debris, metal shrieking under their weight. Meanwhile, Ranger moved. Not much, just a twitch, a tremor, a breath that sounded like broken glass. Lila crawled to him. "Ranger, oh God. Ranger, please." The dog's side was soaked red, his breathing uneven, eyes half closed. But when Hawthorne staggered up again, pulling a second gun from his boot, when he pointed it at Eli and Lila, Ranger's eyes snapped open. He saw the gun, saw the kids, and something ancient, something primal, something bigger than pain lit inside him. The dog pushed himself up, legs trembling, body shaking uncontrollably. He shouldn't have been able to stand. Not with that wound. Not with that blood loss. But he did. And then, with a growl from someplace deep and wild, Ranger launched himself across the floor. Hawthorne barely turned. Ranger collided with him mid-aim, knocking the barrel sideways. The gun went off, blast cracking into the ceiling, splinters raining down. Jack saw it all in slow motion. Ranger slamming into Hawthorne, both collapsing, the gun skidding away, Ranger's body going limp again. "Ranger!" Lila screamed, scrambling to him. "Please, stay with me!" Jack used the opening. He surged forward, grabbed Mason by the collar, slammed him into a pillar. "You touch my son!" Jack's fist cracked into Mason's jaw. "You threaten my son!" Another punch. "You even look at my son!" Mason collapsed, unconscious. Hawthorne lay dazed. Griggs was bleeding out. The fight was over. But the silence after was horrifying. Jack stumbled to Ranger, dropping to his knees. The dog wasn't moving. His breathing was faint. Too faint. "Hang in there, boy," Jack whispered, stroking the matted fur. "You saved them. You saved all of us." Lila sobbed into Ranger's neck. "Don't die. Please. Not now. Not after everything." Jack swallowed hard, eyes burning. The battlefield was quiet, except for a fear no one knew how to name. For a few seconds, the mill was nothing but ringing silence. No gunshots, no shouting, just the sound of Lila sobbing and Ranger's broken, rattling breaths. Jack stared at the dog, at the kid lying limp in Lila's arms, and something inside him just broke. Not in sadness, not in helplessness. In a way that felt like the ground beneath him cracked open and fire poured straight into his blood. A father's fire. The kind that doesn't think, doesn't hesitate, doesn't forgive. Jack rose to his feet. Slow, too slow, like some monster pulling itself up from the bottom of a pit. Hawthorne was crawling toward his dropped gun. Bad choice. Jack didn't yell, didn't warn him. He just moved. He grabbed Hawthorne by the collar and yanked him backward. The man hit the floor with a crack. Before Hawthorne even realized what was happening, Jack drove his elbow into the man's jaw. Once, twice, a third time. "This," Jack slammed Hawthorne into the floor, "is for—" Another blow. "My son!" Blood sprayed across the concrete. Hawthorne went limp, dazed, barely conscious. But Jack wasn't done. Mason, somehow, had pushed himself up onto his elbows, reaching for the rebar again. Jack turned, slowly, and that was all it took. Mason froze, eyes wide, like he suddenly realized Jack wasn't the same man he taunted 10 minutes ago. "Turner," Mason coughed. "Listen." But Jack was tired of listening. He marched over, grabbed Mason by the sweater, and lifted him halfway off the ground. Mason choked, fingers clawing at Jack's hands. "Time 900 wumps. You want to hurt my kid?" Jack growled. "You want to break me? You think stealing my boy is justice?" Mason spat blood. "It's what you deserved." Jack slammed him to the floor. "No, you don't get to decide what I deserve. Not after the lives you destroyed. Not after what you did to that 14-year-old kid 3 years ago. Mason froze, eyes flickering with fear or guilt. Jack didn't care. He dragged Mason across the floor and tied his hands with a frayed electrical cord, yanking it tight until Mason yelped. Then he tied Hawthorne, then Griggs. Jack exhaled. The fight was done. The monsters were down. But the victory tasted like ashes. He turned, just in time to see Lila cradling Ranger's head in her lap, whispering apologies into his fur. "I'm sorry, boy. You didn't have to do that. You didn't." Ranger blinked slowly, barely, letting out a faint, broken wheeze. Jack knelt beside them, touching Ranger's side with a trembling hand. "You did good, buddy," he whispered. "You did more than any of us deserved." Ranger's tail twitched, the smallest flick, like he understood. Jack swallowed hard, forced himself to look away. He wasn't done yet. He turned toward the far wall. "Eli?" Jack called softly. A rustle, a choked little sound, muffled by tape. Jack scrambled across the floor, and there he was, his boy, his 11-year-old kid, tied to a support beam, pale, shaking, eyes red from crying but shining the second he saw his dad. Jack's hands shook as he ripped the tape from Eli's mouth. "Dad," Eli sobbed, throwing himself into Jack's chest. Jack held him tight, like he'd never let go again. "I got you. I got you, son. I'm here. You're safe now." Eli clung to him. I thought you weren't coming." "Hey," Jack whispered, lifting his chin gently. "Look at me. I will always come for you. Always." Lila crawled over, wrapping her arms around both of them, crying into Jack's shoulder. They stayed like that, trembling, clinging, breathing each other in, while Ranger lay behind them, chest rising and falling in shallow, painful breaths. Jack pulled back, meeting Lila's eyes. "You saved him," Jack whispered. "Both of you did." Lila shook her head, tears streaking down. "Ranger did. He never stopped, even when I wanted to." Jack looked at the dog, blood pooling, body still, eyes half closed. And something in him twisted so violently he had to look away. The fight was over, but the night wasn't done taking from them yet. And if you were standing there in that burned-out mill, what would hit you hardest? The fear, the relief, or the thought that Ranger might not survive the next few minutes? Jack didn't waste a second. The moment Mason and his crew were tied, the moment Eli wiped enough tears to breathe, the moment Lila whispered, "He's not moving," Jack scooped Ranger into his arms. And God, Ranger felt too light, too still, too wrong. "Come on, buddy," Jack muttered, cradling the dog against his chest. "Stay with me." You hear me? Stay with me. Ranger didn't answer, just hung limp, paws dangling, blood still trickling down his side. Eli stumbled beside him, clutching Jack's jacket with one trembling hand, gripping Ranger's paw with the other. Like if he let go, the dog might disappear. Lila ran behind them, crying so hard her breaths came out in broken little gasps. Jack, hurry, please. He's not making that sound anymore. Jack's boots thundered across the mill floor, then onto the snow as he burst out the door. The cold hit him like a punch. He didn't slow. His legs were pure adrenaline, carrying him faster than he should have been able to run. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees. Voices. Radios. Search team headlights slicing the dark. Over here, Jack roared. I need help. A paramedic turned, slipped, stared wide-eyed. Holy... Jack? Jack! What happened? No time, Jack rasped. He's been shot. Twice. He's losing blood fast. We need... His voice cracked. The medic grabbed a stretcher, rushed, placed her hands on Ranger. Ranger's body jerked once, then stopped. His chest didn't rise, didn't fall, nothing. Ranger, Lila whispered. Ranger. Jack's world went numb. No. No, 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 no. Jack pressed his ear to Ranger's chest. He was breathing. He was just breathing. The medic leaned in. Her voice softened. Jack, I don't have a pulse. Lila screamed, a sound so raw it tore through the trees. Eli buried his face into Ranger's paw, shaking his head violently. No, he's okay. Ranger, wake up, please. Jack's hands shook. His chest collapsed inward. But he forced himself to move. He locked 2 fingers over Ranger's chest and pumped. Come on, soldier, Jack choked. You don't quit now. You do not quit now. The medic rushed beside him with oxygen. Keep compressions going. Don't stop. Jack kept pumping. Hard. Too hard. Not hard enough. He didn't know. He just knew he couldn't stop. Come on! Come on! His voice cracked under its own weight. Then, Ranger jerked. A tiny twitch, but enough to jolt all of them. He's back! Lila cried. The medic checked. I've got a pulse. Faint, but present. We have to move him now. They lifted Ranger, secured him, sprinted toward the rescue vehicle. Get in, the medic ordered. All of you! Jack climbed in, gripping Ranger's paw like a lifeline. Eli pressed himself into the dog's side. Lila sat across, trembling, whispering Ranger's name like a prayer. The doors slammed. The engine roared. Sirens screamed into the night. Halfway down the first mile, Ranger stopped breathing again. I'm losing him, the medic shouted. Lila let out a sound so small, so broken, Jack hoped he'd never hear it again. Eli pressed his forehead to Ranger's paw. "You saved me. You can't go. Please, please don't go." Jack leaned closer, voice trembling. "You hear that? That's my son begging you to stay. That's Lila. That's me. You don't get to leave, Ranger. You stay." 5 terrifying seconds passed. Nothing. Then, Ranger gasped. A weak, broken sound, but a sound. The medic exhaled sharply. "There it is. Keep him awake. Talk to him, don't stop." Lila held Ranger's face gently. "Ranger, look at me, look at me. You're gonna make it. Okay? You're gonna be okay." Jack rubbed his ear softly. His voice cracked. "Hold on, buddy. Hold on. We're almost there." The ambulance sped toward the animal hospital. Every bump jolting Ranger's body. Every second feeling like a second stolen from death. Jack's heart never slowed. Not once. Because tonight, hope wasn't enough. Tonight was a fight against something bigger than fear. A fight against time. The waiting room felt like a punishment. Too bright. Too quiet. Too clean compared to what they'd just crawled out of. Jack paced back and forth like an animal trapped in a cage far too small. His boots left puddles of melted snow on the tile. His sleeves were stained with Ranger's blood. He didn't even notice. Eli sat curled in one of the plastic chairs, clutching Jack's jacket like it was the only thing holding him together. The kid hadn't said a word since they arrived. Not one. He just stared at the double doors of the operating room, like staring hard enough might make time move faster. Lila sat next to him, knees pulled to her chest, Ranger's collar in her hands. She'd cleaned the blood off it with a handful of tissues until they tore apart. Now she just held it, trembling. 4 hours. Ranger had been in surgery for 4 hours. Jack looked at the clock again, even though he'd done it every 2 minutes. "Dad, is he gonna die?" Eli whispered, voice cracking for the 8th time. Jack opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because he didn't know. Because no parent should ever have to answer that question to a kid who just watched a dog take 2 bullets for him. Jack knelt in front of him and squeezed his hands. "I'm right here," Jack finally said. "No matter what happens, I'm right here." Eli nodded, though it wasn't the answer he wanted. His lip trembled. He suddenly looked so damn small. Lila wiped her eyes. He's strong," she whispered. "Ranger's strong. He's not normal strong. He never gives up." Jack swallowed hard. God. He hoped she was right. Minutes passed. Too slow. Too painful. Every time the hallway light flickered, Lila jumped. Every time a nurse walked out, Eli sat up straight. Every time footsteps echoed, Jack's chest tightened. Then finally, the door pushed open. Dr. McConnell stepped out, and Jack swore the room stopped breathing. The vet looked exhausted. Dark circles, crooked surgical cap, stains on his scrubs that made Jack's stomach twist. But his eyes, that was the first thing Jack looked at. And they weren't solemn. They weren't grim, they were warm. Then McConnell smiled. A small, tired, unbelievably good smile. "He made it," he said softly. Lila's legs collapsed. She hit the floor, hands over her face, sobbing like the world finally let her breathe. Eli gasped. A broken little sound, slapping both hands over his mouth as tears. Jack. Jack didn't move at first. He just stood there, frozen. Because when you've been scared for so long, really, truly terrified, your brain doesn't know what to do when someone finally hands you hope. McConnell continued. "Ranger's alive. He's a fighter. One of the toughest animals I've ever treated. We lost him twice on the table, but—" Eli sobbed again. Lila cried harder. The vet crouched slightly, voice softening. But he didn't quit. That dog refused to go. Jack finally exhaled, shaky, uneven, like he'd been holding the sky up and someone finally told him he could set it down. Can we see him?" Jack asked, voice raw. McConnell nodded. "He's sedated. He won't wake up for a while. But yes, you can see him. Just be gentle. He's been through hell." Eli rushed forward, hugging Jack tightly. Not the scared hug from earlier. The kind of hug that's all relief, all gratitude, all thank God without saying a word. Jack wrapped his arms around him, and for the first time in years, something broke loose in his chest. A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it, didn't hide it. Another followed. Then another. He'd held it together through the forest, through the mill, through the blood, through the fight, through the ambulance. But hearing he made it, that was the thing that finally undid him. They followed the doctor through a quiet hallway, footsteps soft and uneven. Lila kept whispering, "Thank you, thank you," like a mantra. When they entered Ranger's room, the sight hit all of them at once. Bandages, IV lines, monitors beeping softly. But he was there. He was breathing. He was alive. Eli climbed into the chair beside him and rested his hand gently on Ranger's paw. Lila placed the collar beside him, whispering, "I told you you'd make it." Jack stood there, watching the kids, the dog, the soft rise and fall of Ranger's chest on the monitor. And for the first time since this nightmare began, the world felt right again. A few weeks passed, the kind that feels strange after a nightmare. When everything's calm, but your heart hasn't figured that out yet. When you wake up thinking something's wrong, then realize, no, it's just quiet. The good kind of quiet. Ranger healed slower than the doctors predicted, but faster than anyone dared hope. And honestly, nobody was surprised. Not after everything he'd survived. The vet kept saying things like, "This dog's made of steel, and I swear he's got 9 lives." And Lila would just grin, like she already knew. Eli never left Ranger's side. After school, he'd sit beside the kennel, whispering stories, reading comics, ranting about cafeteria lunches, telling Ranger he was his hero. And Ranger would blink at him like he understood every word. Jack watched it all, silently, gratefully, like a man still afraid of waking up from a dream. Then one morning, McConnell finally said the words they'd been waiting for. He's ready to go home. Not to Jack's home, to Lila's. Her backyard had become Ranger's kingdom. Soft grass, wide shade, a porch he liked to sleep under, and 2 kids who loved him more than anything else in the world. So yeah, home was where he chose. And he made that pretty damn obvious the first time they let him off his leash. The sun was warm that morning, the Oregon sky a bright, stupidly beautiful blue. Jack stood on Lila's porch, leaning on the railing, coffee in hand, and a lump in his throat he'd never admit to having. The backyard stretched out like a little green haven, and there, right at the center, was Ranger. Running, actually running, not limping, not wobbling, not fragile. No. He was flying across the yard, legs pumping, tail whipping the air, ears bouncing like he was a puppy again. Lila laughed behind him, trying to catch up. Eli chased them both, panting dramatically, yelling, "Hey, slow down! You're cheating!" Ranger barked back, like he was talking smack. Typical. Jack watched with a feeling hard to explain. Something warm, heavy, sharp, soft, all at once. Peace. Real peace. But underneath that, something deeper. Gratitude so strong it made his eyes sting. He blinked it away, pretended it was the sunlight. He didn't fool himself. He'd lost so much during that nightmare night. Hope. Maybe even faith. But in this tiny backyard, watching 3 souls run in circles under a bright blue sky, he'd gained something else. Something better. Eli stumbled and fell into the grass, bursting into the kind of laughter that's half scream, half joy. Lila dropped beside him, laughing too hard to breathe. Ranger circled them, tail wagging, guarding treasure. Jack let out a long, slow breath. Yeah. This. A few weeks passed, the kind that feels strange after a nightmare. When everything's calm, but your heart hasn't figured that out yet. When you wake up thinking something's wrong, then realize, no, it's just quiet. The good kind of quiet. Ranger healed slower than the doctors predicted, but faster than anyone dared hope. And honestly, nobody was surprised. Not after everything he'd survived. The vet kept saying things like, "This dog's made of steel, and I swear he's got 9 lives." And Lila would just grin, like she already knew. Eli never left Ranger's side. After school, he'd sit beside the kennel, whispering stories, reading comics, ranting about cafeteria lunches, telling Ranger he was his hero. And Ranger would blink at him like he understood every word. Jack watched it all, silently, gratefully, like a man still afraid of waking up from a dream. Then one morning, McConnell finally said the words they'd been waiting for. He's ready to go home. Not to Jack's home, to Lila's. Her backyard had become Ranger's kingdom. Soft grass, wide shade, a porch he liked to sleep under, and 2 kids who loved him more than anything else in the world. So yeah, home was where he chose. And he made that pretty damn obvious the first time they let him off his leash. The sun was warm that morning, the Oregon sky a bright, stupidly beautiful blue. Jack stood on Lila's porch, leaning on the railing, coffee in hand, and a lump in his throat he'd never admit to having. The backyard stretched out like a little green haven, and there, right at the center, was Ranger. Running, actually running, not limping, not wobbling, not fragile. No. He was flying across the yard, legs pumping, tail whipping the air, ears bouncing like he was a puppy again. Lila laughed behind him, trying to catch up. Eli chased them both, panting dramatically, yelling, "Hey, slow down! You're cheating!" Ranger barked back, like he was talking smack. Typical. Jack watched with a feeling hard to explain. Something warm, heavy, sharp, soft, all at once. Peace. Real peace. But underneath that, something deeper. Gratitude so strong it made his eyes sting. He blinked it away, pretended it was the sunlight. He didn't fool himself. He'd lost so much during that nightmare night. Hope. Maybe even faith. But in this tiny backyard, watching 3 souls run in circles under a bright blue sky, he'd gained something else. Something better. Eli stumbled and fell into the grass, bursting into the kind of laughter that's half scream, half joy. Lila dropped beside him, laughing too hard to breathe. Ranger circled them, tail wagging, guarding treasure. Jack let out a long, slow breath. Yeah, this